Okay guys, where we left off last time was a quick discussion about the background around, particularly around the development of background and why we need to have it in our document around our policy. And realistically that's just so that people can better understand the need for the policy change, if it's involved in a change, or the implementation of the policy and why it needs to occur realistically. And some good information to have inside that policy is, obviously the name of the species, where the markets are, so on and so forth. So what I've done for this particular fishery, we'll just go through and I can pretty much highlight things like the places where it's caught, how it's caught, so in this situation we've got seine fishing, we've got minor line and trolling fishery out of the East Australian billfish fishery. We've got something about some stakeholders that are engaged in the process, so the SBT, or the Commission for the Conservation of Southern Bluefin Tuna. That's an international arrangement, so we consider introducing those sorts of topics in at the start of the background. We've got a pretty big map in here. It doesn't look like it at the moment, but the map kind of indicates where the fishing might occur. In this situation it's got the spawning ground up here in the Timor Basin or in the Indian Ocean. We've got the migration routes of the tuna, so on and so forth, little migration up there, migration across to there. So we can already start to paint the picture that the management or the implementation of this policy might not just affect the waters within inside Australia, it's now starting to impact on the waters outside of Australia. So where did I pull this information from? Alright, so I'm just going to pop over to here just so that we can sort of keep a track on the information of what we really want to be considering when we're creating our policy and how we've done it. Oops, we don't want to go to policy statement yet, that's the next session. So we might want to consider things like the history, catch volume, that says volume, some stakeholders maybe, historic stakeholders, the need for change, might even pop in there, possibly. What about we think about the where, the how and the who? Alright, that might be, the who might be directly related to the stakeholders at some stage. Alright, so realistically they're the things that we should be thinking about in the background so that we can start to paint the picture of who this policy is going to affect and how it might be affecting them. And it helps us to keep the policy, I guess, direct and clear. And normally the terminology that we would use in a lot of government departments is transparent. We're dotting all our I's and crossing all our T's. Literally right now we're crossing a T. So that everybody knows who's involved. There's nothing really hidden, unless things that might be hidden are small access fisheries might try and keep some professional information like the catch data, the economics, so how much did the fishery make if it's a limited access fishery. So if there's 2 fisheries, people accessing it, or 4 SFRs, so the statutory fishing rights enabling people to fish within that fishery, that data might be limited so that people don't go, every fisher knows who else is doing what else, if that makes sense, if they're not talking. So that's really what we want to have to go in the background of the fishery, and where I pulled that from was, I just went across and I accessed a couple of websites. This is the AFMA website, so afma.gov.au up there, and AFMA are the mob, or the group, or the association, or the authority, whatever you want to call them. Really, it's the Australian Fisheries Management Authority, who govern or control the Commonwealth fisheries. So I popped over to AFMA, I pulled up a bunch of info from them to try and figure out, what is the status of the fishery. We can already see that the status of the fishery, but it's in a global context here, is uncertain. We might be reasonably sustainable in Australia through our own administration of our catch limits. We can see that we've got this allowable catch system, so we've already got a control set in place that says that there's a total allowable commercial catch, or a TACC. It's given us the value of the fishery, It's told us the types of gear that we've got down here that are used inside that fishery, major landing ports, where are the markets, the location, so on and so forth of the fishery, hence that map, and when the fishing season is, and it's a 12-month season, it just starts in December each year. Now you see at the top of the page there's a bunch of other tabs on here: environmental impacts, fishery rules, compliance and monitoring. We might need to use some of this information to build into our policy, or it might direct us to other information. Let's go across to, where are we? We'll go to fisheries rules. You'll see down here it's got a tuna pre-season debrief. That's actually for the one for 2017-2018. We've got the the bluefin tuna management plan from 1995. That sets out the rules and the regulations about how we can access the fishery. Basically says that we fish it with line and net, and really the only control in place is a full quota control or an output controlled fishery. What I couldn't find in there is whether quotas were transferable from statutory right holders or not, but I'm sure it's probably in there somewhere. There's obviously other publications that are associated with it. Oh, wow, who are the stakeholders involved in the fishery? So it goes through and it sort of gives us a perspective of what our stakeholders are. So really, man, this is a pretty concise little website. I actually really like it. We don't have to go back to textbooks most of the time with the AFMA stuff. We can come across to the website, start to build it, at least for our practical component that we need to do, and for this tutorial series, and use that to help us guide the information we're going to put into our policy. Right, the other one that you might go across to might be the Commission for the Conservation of Southern Bluefin Tuna, who are the international collaborative related to the management control, I guess, of quotas and research and so on and so forth on the international scale. You'll notice that it used to have all the partner countries. I don't know where that's hiding. I'm sure you can have a look through it anyway to see who the partner countries are. They used to have Korea, Japan, things like obviously Australia. Japan's probably the biggest one anyway, where our market ends up going back to, or our sales go back. Oh, there it is there. Yeah, members of the entered into the Australia, European Union, Taiwan, Indonesia, Japan, Korea, New Zealand and South Africa. And you'll see that most of those, apart from probably Taiwan, Japan and the EU, EU probably don't fish it. I don't know if they do or not, but they might buy the product, and the EU has strict guidelines about what they will allow to be imported into their country, so on and so forth. The remainder of them, Indonesia, New Zealand and South Africa obviously, and us, we kind of really have direct contact to the southern bluefin tuna. So it's really important that, these parties are all involved in it. So pop across there and have a look at some of that to help you build your background, to achieve the history, potential volumes, the stakeholders involved, the need to change, why is the need to change there. Trying to create some transparency around, what's involved, particularly the where, the how and the who. So I'm going to leave it there for now. Just download this template. It should be in the as an attachment inside the lecture series or the tutorial series. Download this template, download my example as well. I don't want you to copy my example by any means, word for word, but you'll get the feel for how the information has been taken out of the places I've taken it from and then implemented inside the policy itself. Next session on the mark is we'll come around to creating a policy statement. Alright, so I'm going to leave you with that. Go away, put some information into that background research, whatever you want to call it, and then get ready to have a think about how that information might be used to create a policy statement.